everybody. This is So Many Sequels. I'm Josh.
I'm Garrett.
And I'm David. There was no.
I know we're a tripod instead of a quadruped today.
I was waiting and I'm Andrew.
Andrew's not on the show today. He'll be back next time probably. So it's just going to be the three of us this week. Before we get into the review, though, there's a couple news things that happened this week. I thought we would just discuss. We didn't prepare this ahead of time, but I just remembered a few things. Number one, the biggest thing that happened in the past week is Netflix purchasing 2 sequels for Knives Out for $450 million. Kind of rocked the movie world a little bit. That is a huge sum of money for 2 movies, for one. Knives Out was a big box office hit, especially considering the fact that it was a original movie in a genre that really, when it came out, not entirely popular anymore. It was kind of going back to the older style of detective movies. And Netflix, as we all know, is constantly on the search for its own brand to pop off. It's got Stranger Things is its biggest TV brand, I would say. I could be wrong, but I think it still is. But other than that, they've yet to launch a really big successful movie franchise. And so it seems like that's what they're trying to do by snatching Knives Out away from theaters.
Yeah, and the Knives Out big success. They only spent the production budget was only about $40 million. I can't imagine that they spend more than about $100 million on marketing. And that movie made like $330 million. I think either worldwide or US. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's kind of crazy that because I think it's Lionsgate that released it, and then the company that made it, for being a huge success of theirs and being kind of, like you said, not a pre-existing property. It's kind of crazy that someone would give that up. But I mean, for Netflix come up and get hey, here's $450 million. That's a ton of money.
Well, Lionsgate is a company that really, they produce a lot of really good movies, but I don't think they make a lot of money. I think that Lionsgate is like one of those higher middle tiered production companies. And so for them, I'm sure $450 million, if that was what they got to get rid of it, at some percentage of that is a huge intake for them. Probably make more movies because, again, if you look at Lionsgate's track record, they have a lot of good stuff on their resume. They just don't really get a ton of huge blockbusters.
And Knives Out was that, 311 million worldwide, and Oscar nominated for best adapted screen or best original screenplay, wasn't it?
Something like that. Yeah, it's just I'm a little upset just because it's so much fun to see movies like these in theaters, twists and turns and on the big screen. But it's also at the same time fun if you can get a group of people together and make it a thing where you try to solve the mystery together or something kind of fun. I'm sure there's a way to do it. For movie buffs like us, we would rather sit there and watch it unravel than play around with it with a group. Maybe we're playing inside of our own heads as we're watching it, but I don't know. Whatever, I'll watch it either way.
I agree. It is disappointing because it is one of the, we've talked about it before, there's not a lot of great, brand new, unadapted, things that have come forth over the last few years. And even some of the cool stuff is being pulled, even some of the biggest stuff of the last few years is being pulled from new places that people never looked before. But this was something wholly original that really blew up and did really well. So it's sad to see that's not going to necessarily be in the theater. I mean, it would be fascinating if long term, who knows how long it's going to take for these movies to get made. If long term Netflix is looking at the simultaneous releases that HBO Max is doing, that Disney Plus is doing, and saying, we've always been purely streaming, but who's to stop us from also double dipping and having a 45-day window in theaters with a movie that we know will do big money, like a Knives Out. We've already got your subscription, but hey, give us more.
They should. I mean, if they own it and then they put it in theaters, it's great. I also think that Netflix has, with these of movies, they have a possibility to branch out into like miniseries. I think it could be interesting to, if you can afford them, get the Thrombies back together and do like a mini series, whether it's what led up to the day or just some of their history as they are dealing with it post. Who knows what kind of stories you can come up with, or you could even branch off with whoever you have. You know, he's got little detective underlings that go do their own thing. Who knows? Netflix can be creative with this in many ways.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it should be interesting. Hopefully Netflix will continue to have a relationship with indie theaters like they do currently, and we can see it at our neighborhood circle cinema, where I have watched several Netflix movies. So
Yeah.
that would be great. Movies they see as awards contenders, they often do that, and who's to say it wouldn't be? And the only thing we know, because there are, I don't believe there's any script for these two, is that Ryan Johnson is returning as writer director, and Daniel Craig will return. He's the only one returning because, the first movie's case was solved. So he will take on another case. Should be good. Should be interesting. Secondly, and this is just kind of a fun little piece of news, although also tragic. So we all know there's a new Space Jam coming out. Over the weekend, a new trailer dropped for it. But perhaps the most disturbing piece of news that come out of this is that for the first time since the website was created in 1996, spacejam.com does not go to the original website for the original movie. Now, spacejam.com has infamously led to the original 90s website all the way up until just this week, where it now goes to a landing page for Space Jam 2. And this goes beyond movies and is like upsetting for fans of 90s internet. It was a holdout.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real from a what's the word? From an image standpoint, it's a real like one step forward, one step back kind of move, because it's like, okay, they're bringing out Space Jam. What is it? A New Legacy or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I haven't watched the trailer yet as of this recording, but a lot of positive buzz coming out of it. People are hyped, and then you take away something that's like a cool little like fun thing that's out there on the internet. You know what they say: the internet is forever, and yet the internet, has no memory at the same time. This was like a little niche thing that nobody was bothering with.
Yeah, who made this decision?
What a bummer.
What they need to do is Easter egg it, or what could be fun. There are two options here: make the current updated version of Space Jam look like a 90s version of the website, or deep link it, Easter egg it somewhere in that website where it will still offshoot to the original.
That website belongs in a museum.
All you got to do, it's so simple. You just take that original web page and everything that went with it, right? And you put it under Space Jam, but then you like /96.
Yeah.
Put in
there you go. Yeah.
And then boom, you're on the original website.
Just put it on spacejam2.com and leave the other one alone.
Fair.
That's what I would have done. But it was just a cool little piece of internet history that was left alone for so long, and it's just kind of a bummer to see that.
Did you guys ever go there before?
Yeah.
Before it left?
Every now and then I would be reminded that it exists, and I'd go check on it. And the gif of, I forget the actor, but he's in the woods and he just goes, that was me. Just nodding.
Yeah.
Believe that it's still.
Yeah, I went a few times.
So that's fun. As well. I was gonna add something else. I forgot. Oh well. Anyway. Oh yeah. Whatever. So that was the main bit of news for the week. So let's get into our review. We're gonna talk about Godzilla versus Kong.
Kong.
Oh
that's
my
right.
gosh.
Everybody's team Kong, right?
Monster fight. Yeah, I mean, can you not be Team Kong? Let's face it. I mean, unless you have some weird affinity for Godzilla, how can you not be Team Kong? Even, it just makes no sense.
I would have to agree. So Godzilla vs. Kong came out in theaters and on HBO Max on the same day. It is it's the third, no,
Fourth movie total.
Yeah,
fourth entry in the MonsterVerse, after Godzilla, Kong Skull Island, and Godzilla King of the Monsters.
Yes.
And in this one, we see what people have been waiting on for a long time, an updated version of Godzilla fighting King Kong in a big city, trying to, I don't know that they're trying to save the world typically or just kill each other. But in this movie, they really dive deep into the lore and mythos of the Hollow Earth thing, I think they called it. And basically, these are just two titans and only one can survive because of an ancient rivalry. Meanwhile, as usual, there's an evil man on Earth who's trying to harness the power of these titans to create his own monster, and fighting ensues. So what did everybody think, first impressions of Godzilla versus Kong?
David, you want to go?
Yeah, you know what? It was. I'll go first. So in anticipation, I watched the rest of them because I had seen Kong Skull Island, but I'd never seen 2014's God. I went and watched those two movies in anticipation for this one, and I gotta say, if you have been watching or if you haven't been watching, this movie I think is the most fun of all of these movies. Like it is, there's a lot more energy to it. I feel like it's just more. I don't know. There's more color, definitely. Like there's a lot more. There's a lot more to see, and there's more. I think there's more interesting action in a lot of it. It seems to me like the best possible outcome for this MonsterVerse thing. I don't feel like these movies really gained that much attention during the time that they were being built up, even though they said way back in 2015, I looked it up, and that was the first notion that they were going to try to do this. And even during all that time, I feel like nobody really talked about it, but they managed to, over the course of 6 years, this was supposed to release last year, but over the course of 6 years, they managed to make 4 pretty decent movies that build up to this ultimate, a crossover film. I had a lot of fun with it. That's not to say that there's not things that I didn't like, or there were things that didn't quite connect for me, because that's kind of been my problem watching the other movies, is that there's therefore is the big monsters, and that stuff really kind of worked for me. I think I talked about at the beginning, it's hard not to side with Kong in a situation of Kong versus Godzilla. Kong seems like a little bit more of the underdog, but 2, it's just easier to anthropomorphize an ape than it is a giant dragon thing. Like you can see the emotion in his face, his eyes, and I thought they did a great job of making a distinction between how Kong connects with humans versus how Godzilla connects with humans. And so they made it, but they also made you understand that this fight isn't like they hate each other. It's like this is an alpha dog fight. Like the point of we're both here to protect this earth, and only one of us can do that. So we have to find out who's the strongest to do that. So I liked all that. So I mean, I have generally good praise for it. I can talk about some of the things I didn't like a little bit later, but I kind of want to hear from Garrett, because Garrett, I know you've seen some of the other ones as well.
Yeah, so I didn't watch all of them leading up to it, but I had seen both Godzillas, and now I've seen Kong Skull Island. So, the first Godzilla movie was pretty good. The second one I thought was a little weak. I thought Kong Skull Island is great, and I think that this builds on this, but I will say that the movie had me concerned right out the gate, because you don't know what you're going to get when you have these 2 big personalities about to clash. And when the first thing you see is an opening montage of a giant monkey scratching his butt, that was not what I wanted to see going into this movie. that was like, oh man, don't give me this. I don't want it to be this. And that was the only time that was that. So from there, it just got better, and I completely forgot about it until thinking about the movie again. I think that, just to talk about some of the things that maybe are a little weak, you can always talk about the people, how they're very weak. They introduced Brian Tyree Henry's character in a great, fantastic way, and I liked him. Everyone else is just kind of there. And like, whatever, that's fine. You're here for the monsters, whatever. I think the flow, and then whenever they lean into the ridiculousness of the mythos and the lore and all of that, it took a turn that I didn't expect. I expect, when you think of monster movies, it's mostly about like disaster and destruction, and it is. This one has a different type of element to it that I certainly did not expect. Very, to me, not in the same way, but kind of Jurassic Parkian, in that you're getting, a little bit more mythology, a little more lore, a little more home of these titans, and seeing what they can do. And I liked that element that I didn't expect. It wasn't just a, monster disaster movie. There's more to it. And I really enjoyed that. And then again, there's another big twist that I don't want to get into that was like, but I very much enjoyed this, thought it was a lot of fun. The effects are great. The monster fights are great. Yeah, I think they did a really good job with modernizing these two personalities that have been around for so long.
Yeah. Well, I think we can get into the big spoilers a little bit later, maybe.
Yeah. Jersh?
I really loved it. Thought it was so much fun. I didn't see the second Godzilla movie because I wasn't entirely interested in it. Kong Skull Island is fun at times, and Godzilla I don't recall being fun at all, although I didn't dislike it. This movie is like nonstop fun. I went and saw it in a theater, and they played a trailer for the next Fast and Furious movie, and all I could think the whole time was like, you know what? This is like Fast and Furious is like Godzilla versus Kong, but with cars. It's just crazy stuff blowing up, getting smashed, and those movies do great. So and they're pure fun, no matter how dumb they are. And I thought, you know what? That's what I want this to be. I don't really care how much sense it makes as long as it's fun. And fortunately, even though they dipped into a lot of complicated story ideas, it made sense. I thought it made pretty good sense. I thought the monsters were cool. I really enjoyed how they did kind of humanize them to an extent. Kong is able to communicate with the humans, which again makes sense because despite him being a giant ape, that is a realistic thing. People have learned or managed to teach apes sign language and things like that. So that is a believable occurrence that Kong would be able to communicate. And then while Godzilla can't communicate exactly, the movie shows you his intentions pretty well, I thought. Mm-hmm. So those were cool things. They weren't just big monster smashing things. There was a tiny bit of depth there that I think can be hard to pull off. Yeah. And then, I didn't think the humans were that weak in this one, actually. The only human storyline that I thought was weak was Kyle Chandler as Millie Bobby Brown's dad, who doesn't really do anything other than wonder where his daughter is. Meanwhile, the other humans are doing things. Brian Tyree Henry is an employee of this Apex company. He's also a popular conspiracy theorist podcast host. Millie Bobby Brown, she's in the second Godzilla, right?
She is.
Mm-hmm. I don't know what her deal is other than I was able to figure out pretty quickly that she is also very interested in Godzilla conspiracy theories, and she drags a friend along, and they go down this wild goose chase that contributes to the plot fairly well. And then you've got is that Rebecca Hall, I think, as
Rebecca Hall.
Rebecca Hall and her daughter are dealing with Kong, and they're also really good at contributing to plot because the little girl is the one who is able to directly communicate with Kong because they have some kind of connection. She's um, was it established if she's deaf or mute?
Yeah,
She
she's
doesn't speak.
deaf.
Well, she's also, from my recollection, if you remember in Kong Skull Island, there were some native people on Kong Skull Island.
Yeah,
And they mention in this movie that they got wiped out and she was there and like Kong protected her. And so it's not, or she's not Rebecca Hall's daughter. So Rebecca Hall can't communicate with her either. So she taught her sign language as a way to communicate because she doesn't speak English.
yeah, but yeah, I didn't catch it right away, but yeah, it was eventually established that yeah, she is deaf, and it played that actually ends up playing into the story in very interesting ways, and it allows that situation of introducing the idea of Kong being able to communicate and somewhat well with the humans. It's a really, I think, smart way to establish that and to make it seem believable. As believable as anything can be in this movie.
Yeah. So overall, I thought it was really good and set a high bar for this kind of movie. I think it's so easy for these to just be dumb movies, but this was actually engaging and just fun to watch. So
well, and a lot of times, what I was concerned with coming out of this movie is that it was just going to be the same kind of a build that you get in most of these monster movies, where it's you have Monster A, and they get one little fight where like nobody wins. And then there's another big villain, and then they team up together to take out the big villain and they're best friends. And it takes a similar path, but not exactly that way. And I think that the way they normally do it is because, and this one's interesting because you have Warner Brothers, who owns the rights to King Kong, and you have Legendary, which owns the right to Godzilla. Neither one of them want their monster to win, which is why they want them to lose or look weak. And so what I enjoyed about this is, and David, I think you'll appreciate this from a wrestling perspective, is they treated it very much like a wrestling build, where throughout this movie, you have a fight where Monster A gets a leg up, then you have a fight where Monster B gets a leg up, and then you have a rubber match where things
where
go
you get
down.
like a kind of a definitive winner, but
and then but then at the end you go, they're not necessarily best friends, they're not enemies, you don't really know where they stand, but it's kind of like, okay.
Yeah, but wading into spoiler territory. So if you haven't seen it yet, spoiler. But it's a classic, after a knockdown drag out fight, the hand up. They don't actually do a hand up, but the hand, like the hand up, shake hands, leave on respect. Definitely. This movie did exactly what I thought it was going to do. I don't feel like, I'm not claiming to be a clairvoyant or special in any way, although you may treat me as such. It is exactly what you described, Garrett, where you have, the thing is, they're both technically good guys.
Mm-hmm.
It's like whenever people would go, well, who would win, Batman versus Superman? I was like, well, they would fight for like 2 minutes and then they both realize they're both good guys.
Right.
That's the only way I foresee that going. Like, and you get the introduction here. Spoiler alert. We get Mecha Godzilla, another classic from these old Godzilla movies, as your third party, and you get to see Godzilla and King Kong team up after we get a definitive winner, which I won't spoil. I won't spoil who the definitive winner is, but we do get like, okay, yeah, they won. They won. But I actually really liked that while it went down, like you said, a kind of similar or predictable path as you've seen in a lot of versus type things. They kind of found an interesting way to do that.
I agree.
And I kind of thought that is kind of interesting because I liked King of Monsters in retrospect now. When I was watching it, I was like, yeah, this is fine, whatever, whatever it is. I didn't care for that one as much as I was watching it, because my biggest problem with Godzilla movies a lot of times is that Godzilla a lot of times is just portrayed as like a force of nature, and that movie is like Godzilla versus another force of nature. So it's like there's no character between the two really. And while every character in the movie tells me, oh, Godzilla, he's on our side, he's our friend, he is helping us. It's like you never really see Godzilla feel like he never really like looks at the humans like, not that he has to tip the cap, but I mean
Right.
just something that would make like, oh, Godzilla cares if he accidentally steps on some humans. It doesn't seem that way. It seems like we are just tiny ants on his on his turf. And but I liked this because while they still didn't quite do that, you did get to see a little bit more character in how Godzilla acts, especially when he finds these other two alpha predators he has to go up against. Um, to differ with you guys, and I'll let you guys explain. Maybe you guys can help me around with it. To differ from you guys, I did not care about the Millie Bobby Brown sub B plot and Brian Tyree Henry, and who was this other kid? He was in Deadpool 2. I don't know. He was
I don't know
anyway.
his
This
name.
other
His
kid
name
that
was
with
Josh
them.
in the movie, I think.
I honestly kind of felt like it was all somewhat the whole that entire story could have been told, and their characters could have just not been there. You could just show the villain's point of view. We have a villain in this, or we have a villain in this movie. Just show his point of view of him explaining all of this stuff to someone. It doesn't matter who, or just show his journey through the movie. Because by the end of the movie, the other characters from the A plot, the B plot shows up, and they just kind of look and go, "What the heck is that?"
Mm.
It's like they weren't like communicating with each other, where they go like, "Oh, there's something. This is what Godzilla's running towards." This thing just shows up as from the other character's point of view, and from the Millie Bobby Brown's character's point of view, like they don't really do anything other than just stumble their way into hijinks, into this bigger story. Like I felt like all that stuff could have been introduced without having them. It's not the end of the world, but it's just kind of, I was sitting every time they would cut back to them, I was just like, ugh, like they just
Interesting.
didn't seem to be needed.
No,
Oh,
sorry.
see, I very much enjoyed their because to me they had personality. They had more. I had more interest in watching them as characters than I did watching the other people as characters because they did not seem relatable to me. They were very
and I won't deny that.
And I didn't really care. I got what they were doing and I got why they were there, and I followed the plot and everything. I just didn't connect with them on an emotional level. And I got that from Brian Tyree Henry 100%.
I think I would have been more bored if I did have to hear the villain monologue about what we learned.
I don't even necessarily monologues.
No, the villains kind of suck.
I don't even necessarily need monologues. Just show the villain walking.
Yeah, I know we don't need monologues, but like that's what we would have
walk him through the scene. Let me connect the dots. I can do that. It just seemed like Brian Tyree Henry's character was just explicably knew everything.
I did read one article that I found interesting.
He's just like, oh, it's clearly they're using telepathic super rays. Oh, he's in a trance. Don't worry about that guy. Like,
I read one article that had an interesting perspective on the people in monster movies because they do talk about how that is a consistent thing, whereas usually they're a weak element as far as a character development standpoint. Yes, from a plot perspective, they were fine, but overall, I think most of them had no depth or any like emotional anything to do other than help give you more for the monsters, which is what you're there for anyway. And so the perspective of this article was you can create movies that are monster movies where you get good character development, and they kind of pointed out some of the ones that are very similar, and they use Jurassic Park a lot. They also referenced Kong Skull Island, and they talked about how if you centralize the group of people, that really helps them rather than having to bounce around from different people to different people because you don't have that time. And if you have, instead of 6 different characters, you have 3 or 4 in one central location, that helps you develop them more than, you had 3 over here and like 5 or 6 over here, and you just don't have time for all of that.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was an interesting perspective.
I think that's a good point because I think it would have been fine if it felt like it was connected. Obviously, they meet up at the end, but it just felt so disjointed from the other story that was going on, where we were definitely pursuing we had these characters that were just with Kong. They were just trying to get Kong somewhere, and they're just kind of trying to avoid Godzilla on the way because Godzilla is looking for a fight. He was stomping around Tokyo ground, whatever. This is the ultimate showdown. This is and then you have Millie Bobby Brown and the other characters, and they just kind of feel like they're not connected to me, to the story.
Sure.
Obviously what they do, what they discover and cover and discover is important, but I think the movie really summed it up to me when Alexander Skarsgård and Rebecca Hall, Mecha Godzilla shows up, and they're like, what the heck is that thing? And it's like, well, we the audience, we've known for like 55 minutes what that thing is. So anyway, I don't know. It might be a weak complaint, but it's interesting that it's kind of reversed for us.
Mm-hmm.
It was the other story that wasn't as connecting for you guys.
Sure.
So.
I also want to take time just to really give a lot of attention to Kong, because I feel like they have done a very good job of modernizing something that's been around for so long. You look at the remake that we had, I don't even know. 05, is that when it came out, that terrible thing?
Yeah,
it was basically just a longer version of the original one. And the problem that I have with a lot of remakes and reboots is that you just don't get anything original. You get a rehash of everything. And so what I really appreciate, at least from this MonsterVerse, is that Kong is a really original timeline to an extent. And it's not them taking him and finding him on the island and bringing him to New York and him holding onto the Empire State Building. And all this is not the same thing that I've seen over and over and over and over. They have done a really good job of giving me a modern King Kong that I can connect with. And I think that is a really good thing for other people. You can take take other properties and modernize them, but don't give me what I got already. Do something else and original. I get that you want to see the monkey on the bill. That's the shot. That's whatever. But I've seen it already. They did it great then. Give me an homage. Don't give me the same story.
I know. It's interesting that there was like no homage, because
there was a brief moment where in like Tokyo he's like swinging from a building that's kind of in the shape of the same thing. But like maybe I overlooked that. It's so quick that it's probably not even a reference thing. I just took it as that, and it's gave me what I wanted, and I'm super happy that they didn't just give me the same thing. So same thing with what they've done with Jason. Give me those characters I'm familiar with, but don't give me the same story that I've already heard.
What do you think, Josh?
Sorry, not Michael Myers. Michael Myers.
Oh, Mike Myers. I was like, who's Jason?
I said Jason. I meant Michael Myers.
I was like, I never saw when I got around those new Friday the 13th.
Wait, what about me?
What do you think about this modernization of Kong between those two movies and versus the kind of traditional way that he's presented?
Yeah, for sure.
This is the 12th Kong movie.
Yeah, I mean, I have not seen the majority of Kong movies. But it seems to me, as an outsider looking in, I could be completely wrong, but it seems like in the past they almost try to romanticize the Kong story, and that's stupid. That's stupid. It's just dumb, and I assume that's because I think that's how the first Kong movie was, where he falls in love with the girl. Is that right? I don't know.
They have a connection that calms her down, very similar to Black Widow and Hulk.
So it feels like they always have leaned into that in the reboots. I mean, I think that's kind of what they were going for in Peter Jackson's epic version of King Kong. Yeah. And I don't like that, and I don't want that. I'm not here for that. Like you said, that already exists. And I don't even want to see that version of that already exists. Well, and a lot of times when we see movies with humans as a main character and big monkeys as a big character, there's always this theme of they love each other, whether it's familial or whatever. I think of Mighty Joe Young, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I want to see an angry monkey break something. And that's what I got in this one.
No, and
And
I
that's
think
what I got
Kong.
in Skull Island.
I think Kong, the movie, the first King Kong, I think it helped establish that as a trope, that the
Yeah.
gentle giant
Yeah.
trope, if you will, of this big creature but has a soft spot. Maybe not for all humans, but at least for like one human is capable of making that connection. And you've seen that not just in movies about apes, but you've seen that in all kinds of monster movies and superhero movies and things like that. You know, I'm thinking of like, you could think of like something like the Hulk. You could think of Iron Giant. You know, any of these movies where you have this large, scary thing actually has a soft spot in its heart for something that it shouldn't care about. I don't mind that as an aspect of Kong's character, if you will, and I like that they maintain that, because
Yes.
you see a little of it in Kong Skull Island, and you see it here, that there's a part of his character that's not just all violence, but when he has to turn it on, when he has to defend, he can do it, and I think that's a really, I think that way has a little bit more longevity. I wouldn't try to dissuade against the classic original, I think 1933 film. And for those who love Peter Jackson's remake, I think it's a little over long, but that old romanticized story I feel like has value. But I think that if this character is going to have to be a franchise character, if Legendary or whoever is, or Warner Brothers is just dedicated to it being a franchise thing, you might as well have some fun with it.
I
And
have
that is a
no
good.
problems
Yeah.
with taking what those stories built on that character. It would be stupid to ignore all of the lore and the history of that. But yeah, we all know that story. That story is so iconic and told that you can just make sure that people know that that's King Kong, and people are like,
Yeah.
okay, I get the character. I get that he has that humanistic side. I don't need to see it again and again and again.
There's no need to retread it in such a
It's like
simple
watching
way.
Batman's parents die over and over again. I don't need it.
Yeah, I mean, find creative ways to incorporate it, and I'll appreciate it. Okay,
Yes.
but
Yes.
don't just give me the same shot over and over again, or the same, God forbid, the same movie over and over again.
Right. And that's
You know,
what this
that's
version
what
of
I liked
Kong has
about
done.
Kong Skull
Yeah.
Island, is that it was on the island the whole time.
Yeah.
Like what a different setting. Because, you know, and again, I've never seen King Kong Lives from 1986. I never saw King Kong Escapes from 1967. But I imagine that they follow the kind of traditional big monster messes stuff up. Does he die at the end? Who knows?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. I also never saw the original Kong versus Godzilla. Interesting that he got first billing the first time around, but not this time. But that movie ended with apparently a bit of a non-finish.
And that's what I was worried about, is a lot of these versus movies is I leave unsatisfied because I don't get that. Sometimes I don't even get the real fight. I don't even get to see the two build people fight. It's all a lie. And then they don't, they don't want either one to win or lose because they don't want one or the other to look weak. And that is silly.
Here's an interesting throw at you. What are some other versus movies that we can compare this to real quick? We don't have to
Freddy
say
versus Jason. Freddy versus Jason.
Movies. What do you think of Kramer versus Kramer?
No. I don't think in the same realm as this.
Alien versus Predator, Freddy versus Jason,
Predator,
Batman
Alien.
versus Superman.
I'll tell you what, I like I think it's probably trash, but I like Predator versus Alien. I had fun with that. My favorite aspect of that is that it's like a ton of aliens and one predator. Because the aliens are kind of like, I mean, I'm not a big on Aliens, the franchise, but they're kind of like big space dogs. So, and the Predator's like he's like a freaking bounty hunter from Star Wars.
Right.
Let's see. Billy the Kid versus Dracula. You guys seen this one?
No.
Who are you taking, Billy the Kid or Dracula?
I mean, if Billy the Kid's got silver bullets, then Billy the Kid, he's a dead shot.
Ooh, smart. See, that's thinking with your noodle there, Garrett. What about what we got here? Dracula versus Frankenstein. Another Dracula.
Frankenstein.
Dracula very popular in these movies.
That
Batman vs Superman, we saw that. Hey,
Yeah.
so you know what sucks about Batman vs Superman in this movie, this Kong versus Godzilla versus Kong?
What's
Is
that?
that I'd
I
rather
made a
have
joke
Kong
to
be my
myself.
protector.
I made a joke to myself when I first saw the title announced, and laughed my butt off to myself, only to take to Twitter, and of course, hundreds of people have already made this exact same joke. They're already on it. I'm not claiming to be original, but it was the idea of Godzilla having Kong, or excuse me, Kong having Godzilla on the ground, and Godzilla says,
I know where you.
"Save Mothra, save Mothra," and then Godzilla goes, "Why?" Or Kong goes, "Why did you say that name?" Because he knows Mothra, just like Martha. Okay, and like it was such an obvious joke, but I thought to myself, I gotta tweet this before somebody else thinks it.
I gotta tweet it.
So many people already thought of it. What a bummer. Freddy versus Jason. Did you guys ever see this one?
Yeah, it's bad.
I know how that one ends. That one's kind of a non-finish.
Yep, it's bad. That's what I'm saying. That's the way they always end. They always end with a non-finish because most of the time they just wanted to be like, oh, could there be another? Yeah.
This list on Looper is perfect. It included Joe versus the volcano.
Definitely.
That's
volcano.
funny.
Just not anything like the rest of the
No,
movie.
I take Joe. I take Joe. A volcano can't take down Tom Hanks. Take Joe all the way.
Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Oh, Scott.
I
Definitely
mean,
Scott.
you want to think Scott's gonna win, but I mean, let's face it, it's the whole world. All right,
Scott's gonna
world.
win.
Eventually, there's just too many people. There's just too many.
Scott's
people
coming for you.
Monsters versus Aliens. That's a good one.
Aliens versus Cowboys.
Aliens versus Cowboys. Cowboys versus Aliens.
Cowboys versus Aliens.
Or is it Cowboys and Aliens?
I thought it was Cowboys and Aliens, but they definitely are against each other in the movie.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna go with whatever team Harrison Ford is on every time.
Always.
Yeah.
Well, what else do we got? Anything else about the movie that we want to throw out there that we haven't talked about? I very much enjoyed it. Oh, David, did you watch it in the theater or watch it at home?
I watched it at home.
How'd you feel?
I got a youngin'. I got a 5-week-old over here.
I know.
And I kind of feel like if I had seen it in the theater, was this available on IMAX as well?
Mm-hmm.
I could have seen it in those formats, then I probably would have liked it even more than I did. But I still walked away enjoying myself. I watched all these movies here at home. The ability to pause came in very handy because I was alone. My wife had to go do errands, and so I was alone. And as you might imagine, my son Jack had several bathroom breaks he needed to take. So the ability to pause was an added bonus in the scenario. I do look forward to seeing going back to the theater soon, because I think I would have enjoyed it even more. I know, Josh, you enjoyed your theater experience. Garrett, I assume you did. I know that Josh, you walked away thinking about the casualty list for this movie, or the destruction.
Yes.
I saw the post about that. Is that pressing on your mind?
Well, so in a movie like this, I'm always wondering about the cost of reconstruction.
Mm-hmm.
Hong Kong was fairly well demolished by Kong and Godzilla, at least downtown-ish. So I'm always wondering, like, man, what is the cost of that in terms of human life and how do they rebuild it? Now, they don't go into detail about the human cost, other than to say, like, oh, don't worry, we evacuated the city. So you're like left to believe no one got hurt.
Now, I mean,
because they don't show people getting hurt.
It's a good thing this one is in Hong Kong and not America, because you at least think the Hong Kong people probably listened to Get Out. If it was in America again, there'd be a bunch of people, there ain't no monster. Ain't no monster. They ain't gonna drive me out my house.
I'll shoot it.
Look, if I see the monster coming down my alley, then I'll leave. All right, but it ain't happening. It ain't happening.
So Rotten Tomatoes actually did an article about Godzilla versus Kong by the numbers. And according to this article, King Kong has done an estimated $1.5 billion of damage over his course of existing. Godzilla.
And that's crazy to me, because that feels like the low end of the damage in this movie alone.
Well, you got to think back, so it's adjusted for inflation also.
Yeah,
But
of course it is.
you know, most
Sort
of
of
King
the
Kong
fantasy.
is on the island, and then he comes to New York City. Godzilla is normally always taking place in the city, and basically they don't even know where to begin, and they say a submarine that he destroyed in the 1998 movie is worth $900 million alone. So that,
I mean,
plus all the movies he's done, plus yeah, he's normally in like Tokyo, which is a very populous city, destroying it left and right. I mean, he has done so much damage.
yeah.
You know,
Unbelievable.
if you're a person who lives in Tokyo, I don't know what people from Tokyo are called. If you're a person who lives in Tokyo, right, in the Godzilla universe, you just gotta like move from
Yeah.
Tokyo. It's
Not
like every
worth
time
it.
I build something,
Well,
they
that's-
wake up Godzilla again.
You know, I was thinking about that too, especially when I'm watching like Millie Bobby Brown and gang just run around. I was thinking to myself, like, what would it be like to live in a world where these things can just happen? Because she's living a normal life, going to school and just casually listening to conspiracy podcasts about Godzilla, like on the bus and stuff. So it's
Yeah.
like they just live in a world where this is a thing now and life continues around it.
Yeah.
And that boggles my mind a bit.
Well, I get that they're protectors. Like Godzilla's a protector overall. He wants to make sure everybody's safe. King Kong is a protector overall, but then again, they have their fights, and then it's not being protected. it's being destroyed.
And they talk about how this movie is 5 years after the events of Godzilla King of Monsters. So it's been 5 years. Nothing's happened. But let's face it, the way that this world works apparently now is like at any given moment, Godzilla could just pop up and just decide, hey, I'm gonna go fight that thing. Everybody's like, what thing?
Yeah.
And then that thing finally shows up. Godzilla knows before we do. Yeah, it would be. I feel like it would be very difficult. I don't know where would be the best place to live. It seems like not a lot has happened in terms of Godzilla and King Kong movies. Not a lot happens in like Africa. I'd move to like Egypt or something
London,
like that.
in the European countries, there's nothing that usually happens there.
They seem to keep it to the east. They need to keep it to Japan and the west coast of the United States. That first movie was in San Francisco. Have you guys? You guys said so. You're not really like in this. You don't really like follow like these movies, do you? Like Godzilla movies, stuff like that. I know there's a lot of fans out there of this kaiju universe of crazy characters, and we've seen a lot over the last few movies.
Yeah.
But this is my first real introduction into a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, same. I'm not very familiar with the deeper levels of the story beyond who is Godzilla, who is Kong, and then like I know the names of characters like Mothra and Mechagodzilla, but I've never really seen them. I would like to maybe dive into some of that though, and I was checking before we started, and if you're someone who watched this movie on HBO Max or have access to it, they've got 12 Godzilla movies on there, including the current MonsterVerse, and I think it was four or five King Kong movies. So I might start there and
I bet those
play
movies are
around
pretty
and watch
short.
some older movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, who said Andrew has to be the only one who likes old movies?
Hey, yeah, exactly. But to get back to what I think you were initially going toward before we move on, the theater experience was really cool. I think this is a great movie to see in a theater if you're in a position to see a movie in a theater and you are fully vaccinated and able to do so safely. It's really cool. It's one of the better visual effects experiences I've had on the Dolby screen at AMC. It's just really cool to see it on a screen that big. There's been a handful of big movies that have come out. This has been the biggest one since Tenet. Tenet came out too soon, we have learned in hindsight, and did not do well domestically at the box office, and did not usher in the return to movie theaters that Chris Nolan and Warner Brothers hoped it would. But to transition now, because I know you've got some data.
I do.
Godzilla versus Kong is killing it at the box office. in
A
in the pandemic.
strong return so far. Now, granted, we're only 3 days in, but opening up on a Wednesday, single day total $9.6 million on March 31st of 2021. This is pretty fresh. Since then, April 1st, 6.7 million. That's only a 30% drop for a Thursday show, which isn't bad. And then Friday, so this is the most recent number I have. Friday, April 2nd, a 70% boost to $11.6 million. So we're looking at a very big, I mean, I guess you'd have to call it a 5-day because they released it on a Wednesday. But by Sunday, best estimate, this thing could have at least let's give it like 10 and 9 for the next 2 days. So you're looking at about another $19 million, I think, by the time we're all said and done. I think it's going to be the biggest thing we've had since the pandemic began, easily. It's kind of hard to imagine that if people are willing to go out and see this, it's hard to imagine that they wouldn't stick with it.
Yeah, I agree.
I had read an article just today that it's looking at a possibly $46 to $50 million opening weekend.
Wow, well, and don't forget that it's also Easter weekend, so it's also Easter weekend, so I feel like that could be a big movie to an extent.
Well, I just did the math. I just did my math there, and my math came out to 46 million. So luckily,
boom, you're right on target with the articles.
It's been a long time since I've been able to exercise any box office predictions.
I know.
You still got it. You still got it.
That said, in the long scheme of things, this is going to be barely nothing compared to what it could have made in a healthy box office season. But with the hunger for people to get back to some of this normalcy, and with theaters being more and more open, I think that it's in over 3,000 theaters right now. And as we go along, they're going to leave this thing in for at least 45 days, I think is the plan, or at least a month. So there's time for it to get a pretty good amount of money. So yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely going to be it's going to work its way up. 2020 on the whole, or 2021, excuse me, as a whole, where do I have that number at? Oh, that's not what I want. Sorry about that. For the year, we're looking at the number one movie is still Tom and Jerry, which is holding out pretty well. At number 2, you have Raya and the Last Dragon. Just behind it, so it's 37 million for Tom and Jerry, 30 million for Raya and the Last Dragon. I mean, this is impressive though. Godzilla versus Kong, only out for 3 days. It's already the number 3 movie in the United States for the year, 27.9 million. Number 4, The Marksman. And number 5, The Little Things. Man, is actually hung in there pretty well. I would imagine that as things open up more and more, and as new things come out, all of those movies are kind of going to drift down a little bit. It's going to be really interesting to see what that first movie is back that has that first like huge opening, like 90 million plus opening. I would think that the best chance is probably going to be the Fast and the Furious movie, right? Isn't there a Fast and Furious movie coming out in June?
Yeah.
F9 comes out in June. I would imagine that that's got the best chance to do it, followed by Black Widow. Either of those could possibly break 100 million if we're at 4,000 theaters by then. With this one having a chance at 50 million, it would be hard to imagine that they couldn't come close.
Yeah.
For a little, that's all I have in terms of that. For a little perspective, on the rest of the MonsterVerse, that first 2014 Godzilla that brought in $200 million total. Kong vs. Skull Island came in second with 168. Godzilla King of Monsters, 110 million, and this is at 27 million. I think that if this could manage to find its way to $100 million in a pandemic, that'd be a huge win as far as all the parties involved were concerned. It's not likely to make back its budget, at least not domestically, but it could. You're looking for what's it called, a moral victory here.
Yeah.
Yes, the big one.
I think it's really impressive to me that these HBO simultaneous release day movies are killing it at the box office.
Well, I think it benefits that they are good movies for the most part.
They're movies people want to see, yeah.
Yeah, but I think that
HBO Max has a much
it's
smaller subscriber base than most too.
It is, and that's what amazes me is like you got these free, I mean essentially free movies that people want to see, but HBO subscriber base really hasn't. I don't think it's pushed past 25 million yet.
which shows that it doesn't matter, I guess. I mean, if they want to keep doing it, by all means, I guess go ahead.
I guess not, because I mean, and I kind of, and we're not seeing that the theaters aren't. It's kind of funny to me that the theaters threw such a stink about it, but I mean, they're still making money. I mean, the theaters at the end of the day are going to make more money off these than the studios will.
You also have to think, as much as people want to watch movies in their house, and as much as people are willing to watch 4 hours of a TV show, I think that people are more willing to go watch a movie in a theater because they don't necessarily want to pause a movie. They don't mind pausing a TV show, but for some reason, a lot of people might have problems watching a movie at home.
I get that.
Because of the distraction, and they want to watch it as a one whole thing. Thus, they would rather go to the theater instead of be at home. Some people.
I get that. I think it's just amazing that there was this kind of fear of like, oh, you're cutting our legs out from under us from the theaters. Not to say those fears weren't valid, but at this point, like those movies are doing really well, and unless something is like way off, I think that the theaters are going to end up being okay in this exchange, because the theaters are going to take their cut of the movie, and HBO is not going to make back their money on any of them.
It would be interesting though to see if Godzilla versus Kong had come out on Netflix, then what would happen? If a big, similar to Knives Out, if Netflix decides, or I guess if Disney decides to release numbers, I guess we'll never know because they don't release their numbers. But if a bigger subscription base releases a movie with big recognition like that in their subscriber base and in theaters, it would be interesting to see how much money that movie would make, as opposed to the HBO Max, which does have a smaller subscriber base.
Yeah, that would be the thing is, Netflix has so many subscribers that them gaining a big movie, it's hard for me to imagine they gain a lot of new subscribers from that. Like, I don't know that I see a bunch of people buying a Netflix account because of Knives Out. They already have it. It's like ubiquitous with people now. So,
but for me, the question is, do they release it in theaters to make money? Yeah. Or do they not? Because that would be the thing. If Netflix releases a big movie like a Knives Out sequel in theaters, does that movie make box office money or does it not? Because everybody has Netflix and they can watch it all.
Part of me,
as opposed to something like the HBO Max, because a lot of people don't have it.
Part of me thinks they know it wouldn't make as much money as it should. And when a movie doesn't make a lot of money at the box office, it is seen as a failure.
Yeah, and I guess it depends on how much they really are going to end up putting into it. I mean, Netflix, I mean, they make so much money a month. They make like somewhere, I don't know the exact number, but somewhere between like $650 and like $1 billion a month just off their subscribers. So like they can drop money on things, but whether or not the idea of releasing a movie in theaters would appeal to them, I mean, I feel like they can take the loss if if it doesn't work out.
Right.
They can afford to experiment with one because they still got it on their home platform. If it doesn't make as much money as possible, they can go, okay, well, it didn't work out, and we won't do that again.
For them, they can say, well, we didn't make any money at the box office, but here's how many people watched it in X amount of days when it hit the platform, and that would be like I bet they would have really interesting household numbers to see.
And depending on what the cost would be for like a wide release, they could. I think they would make some money off of it, maybe. Who knows?
All I'm saying is that you double money from me, Netflix.
Yeah, it would require a massive change in attitude too, because we've heard in the past that one of the problems with movies movie theaters taking in Netflix films is that Netflix demands like some crazy things, like it must be in so many of your theaters, and theaters are like, well, we can't put one movie in that many rooms, and they're like, well, then you can't have it at all. Um, Things like that just get in the way of the business. Plus, at the end of the day, how does it look for the world's biggest streaming company to put their movies in theaters?
True.
It's kind of like,
Yeah,
So
I know. That's why it's kind of a pipe dream in a lot of ways.
I think we're lucky that they do what they do, and which is put it in a small number of theaters.
True.
For whatever reasons they have, but that's as good as it gets for them, I think. Oh, and I wanted to, while you guys were talking, I looked up something just for fun, because it's been a little over a year since the pandemic started affecting movies. This weekend last year in 2020, the box office made $3,700.
Whoa.
There were about 30 theaters open, and by theaters I mean screens. Yeah. There were about 30 screens open the weekend of March 28th last year.
Yeah, this is about the time that Onward was out, I think, and
so it shows Onward. How far we've come from making $3,000 in one weekend to Kong versus Godzilla potentially making about 46 million. Big deal.
Yeah. I wonder if I do I have that number? Yeah, Kong actually. So according to Box Office Mojo, on its release day, Kong averaged $3,900 a theater.
So that's more than the entire U.S. box office.
The entire box office.
This weekend last year. Okay. Who remembers who's running our Letterboxd game this week?
It's Garrett this week. Garrett
won. Good, because I accidentally just saw the score anyway.
Well, that's perfect.
So perfectly.
Works out.
So, gentlemen, David, do you have a tally of who's won what? Do you happen to have that information?
I do. So, you just mean who's in the lead and who's got what score?
Yeah.
Well, right now it's Garrett 2. The rest of us won.
Hey, sweet.
We've all had at least one win. Garrett, he won for Malcolm and Marie and the Snyder Cut. Andrew won Raya and the Last Dragon. I won The Little Things, and then Josh won Judah and the Black Messiah. So that's where we stand as of this recording. There's some other cuts out there, some other recordings out there that I wasn't privy to, but we'll
get you that information eventually. All right, boys. Who wants to go first? You can just shout them out since you're tired. I don't care.
Man.
I think it's going to be pretty good. I think the Letterboxd community will enjoy the MonsterVerse.
Yeah. Both. I've seen the Rotten Tomato scores, and both of those are pretty high.
I saw those as well. Yes. I'm gonna say 3.4.
3.4 for Josh.
Yeah. Very close to where I was gonna go.
Right? It's hard. Like it's like.
But I'll
3.5 is really high for a movie on Letterboxd, but 3.0 seems too low for this.
I know.
It's tough.
I was gonna say 3.3.
Ooh.
3.3,
which would just undercut you. But so I don't know if I want to go over you or under you. That's the thing, is that 3.5 isn't bad either necessarily,
right?
Because it could be higher than that still. I will say, I'll give myself some distance. I'll say a 3.6.
3.6. Okay, so we got a 3.4 for Josh and a 3.6 for.
There's a tie,
David.
Then we have a tie. We can settle that, but otherwise we got it covered on other ends of the spectrum.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that there is. I can also tell you that there is no exact winner. I can also tell you that both of you went way too high.
Oh no!
Which means Josh is the winner.
Oh,
the score on Letterboxd is a 3.1.
3.1.
Hey, I only went 0.3 too high. I wouldn't call that way.
I know. I didn't.
You said we went way.
I thought you were gonna
high.
drop us with. I thought you were gonna say it was like a 2.2. I was
That's
gonna
what
be like,
I was waiting for.
Normally that's high for us normally.
Yeah.
But we also normally have a third person to even out the range.
yeah, it's true. It's true.
But Josh, you've taken
Should have stuck with that 3.3. Shoot.
Yep.
Well, that's two. That's win number 2 for Josh. Josh was our winner last year.
I think just looking at some of these,
Hey, read this. Some of the top reviews.
Some of the reviews here: Godzilla in all caps, Godzilla versus Kong, movie of the year. Movies are back. Summer is here. Hollow Earth is real.
I think a lot of people feel like that. You know.
Yeah. And then another good one here.
Yeah, Kong's gonna get all that goodwill that. Godzilla vs. Kong's gonna get all that goodwill that Tenet wanted.
Yeah. And another good one that I enjoy here, I imagine this is a post credits and it just says, and they were roommates. So those are just a few of the ones there that I
did see a very funny, I don't know if it was a meme, I don't know if it's a real thing, but someone had a children's book of it was his children's book for Godzilla versus Kong, and it was Kong on a building reaching out to Godzilla, and it said sometimes friends fight. That was the name of the book, is Sometimes Friends Fight, for children, starring Kong and Godzilla. I was like, that's nice. Did you read a particularly funny one there, Gary?
Oh, it just said, bro, I skipped my uncle's funeral to go watch this, and it caught me off guard. I was not prepared for that. So I put that down.
Well,
that's good.
So,
what do you guys rate it?
Yeah, what are we rating it?
You know what? I had a lot of fun. I'd watch this again. I'm gonna go high. It's gonna get a 4 stars from me.
Ooh, a full 4 from Gary. I'm gonna go a little lower than you, but not too much. I'm gonna give it 3.5. I thought this was pretty good. I enjoyed myself. I could be talked into watching it again. Can't say that for the other 2 Godzilla movies. I would watch Kong Skull Island again. But I kind of think 3.5. That's where I'm gonna go with it.
I also had a great time and would watch it again. So it's also a 4 for me. With that, our So Many Sequel score comes out to a 3.8. So
Ain't bad.
We have to round that up to a 4, which means we went considerably higher than Letterboxd this time.
We
didn't have Andrew to round it out.
That's true. We didn't have Andrew's score. We'll get it from him and add it in and see if
Andrew would have gave this 2.5 and would have really evened us out.
I loved it. 1 star.
I thought the visuals were great. I thought that they were nice.
Oh, you know what? We didn't talk about the visuals. And can we real quick, just real quick? I know this. I don't know how long we're going, but like the visual effects in this movie were incredibly good. I think Kong looked amazing. I think the close-ups that you got of Godzilla were really good to see the scale and the texture and all of that. The destruction. I don't know what it was called when they went to the place they went, because I can't remember, but like I thought that looked great.
The Hollow World, I think. Is what they
the whole Hollow World element of it, like all of the effects from this movie were absolutely fantastic.
I thought that for me, Kong looked great. Godzilla looked great. The destruction and all that stuff looked really good. I kind of thought that one of the most interesting shots that I remembered. Sorry.
You have an audience. It's okay.
I have an audience. Jack is.
He did not like the effects, though.
He didn't really care for the movie at all. It was a lot of screaming monsters. He's not necessarily a big fan of Millie Bobby Brown either. No, just kidding. He doesn't know the difference. Shots really stands out, and maybe it wouldn't stand out to most is towards the beginning during the Shrek homage that you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Was when he chucks that tree and it hits Joshua, get this, the holodeck that he's inside and breaks it. I was actually surprised. I genuinely was not expecting
I
that.
agree.
So
I was not expecting that either.
Oh, that was that was kind of neat. I like that. It was a good use of visual effects to just make you, to remind you, oh yeah, none of this is real. And a lot of times that's the case. None of this is actually real. I'm just watching a really good painting.
Yeah. It was really good. The effects were really cool. That, I believe, is going to wrap up this episode of So Many Sequels. Thank you for watching with us and enjoying or not enjoying Kong versus Godzilla, or Godzilla versus Kong, I guess.
Yeah, let us know what you thought.
Yeah, let us know what you thought of the movie by sending us a message on Instagram or commenting on one of our Facebook posts or however else you want to get a hold of
In
us.
the comments below, leave us a review on
Yeah.
iTunes and all
All
of
those
that. Leave
things.
us a review. Leave us your review in the comments on iTunes, and we might read them that way.
Wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't that be
You
fun?
can also leave us. You can also leave us a 5-star review while you're there.
That would
Yeah.
be more fun.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
can do all
and
kinds of stuff to help us. You can hit that little thumbs up button on YouTube. Share with your friends.
You can reply as well to our Letterboxd account. So many sequels on Letterboxd. I'm David Proctor on Letterboxd. I think you guys, Josh, say your names. I don't remember what your usernames are.
Yeah.
Just
Josh
our names.
Gammon and Garrett Powders.
That's us.
Find us on there. You can comment there as well. You know, we're always looking for more engagement.
Exactly. So find us online, subscribe to the show, however you came across us. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so in your favorite podcasting app or on our YouTube channel. Just search So Many Sequels wherever you need to search. We'll be back next time with another movie review. Till then, bye.